That day I missed my flight. I walked around their streets, through their dirty back alleys. I witnessed the travesty of mankind, still going on now, somewhere else. Saw the poverty, for the first time in my life. I saw through their faces, I saw their suffering, their eyes dying, set within their heads, the lines on their hands, their faces. They were left to die like animals, where people like I sat in comfy chairs and jetted around the world, enjoying myself whilst talking about poverty as if I was even concerned about it. I couldn't help feeling wretched, the way I'd been. That if I had given that family that treated me with such kindness, and I treated them with such contempt, if I had given them some money, would their daughter be alive now? Would she be sitting up, able to wrap her bony arms around her mother, tell her how much she loved her in her own language? My small amount of change that I would waste on cigarettes or drink or entertainment just to pass the time because I had nothing better else to do would have been better spent just passed on to them. Or the money that I'd use for cabs and taxis rather than walking down the street. They never asked for much. And so I started to give out money, hard-earned money that I had earned, to these people that I saw in the streets. And I knew that their stories, some of them were fake. Then I was a journalist of words, and I was paid for those kinds of fake words as well. I knew from their faces that there was suffering, even if it wasn't the suffering that they expressed. They would tell me their tales of woe, their stories of illnesses, of sick relatives, of being out of work, of their electricity being cut off, all the different tales, all sudden and urgent, and they'd come back to me with some other kind of thing, that had travesty, the tragedy that had happened to them, that they would need money from me, and they would ask and ask, even if I had nothing left, and I would go and get some and give it to them. So much so that in that short amount of time I became almost a legend in that angel's city. They started to call me the angel. How could a man that more akin to the devil be called the angel? And then I realized of what good can be done by such small amounts. Although I say small, I know it's difficult for men to part with their money. For I knew that, and I saw or witnessed that there were fraudsters amongst them, people who'd come up to me and they'd get money from me, then go back, and they'd put some makeup on and pretend to be someone else, a boy being a girl, pretending to be his sister, saying that he got locked up and that he'd need money. I saw the desperation. I knew what was going on. I still gave the money. Because for them to have to do that, they have to go to such imaginary ways, to lie so much, shows a great need that they had, more than I, who could just walk and earn money so easily without any of this kind of difficulty or deprivation. They had to have no shame to be able to do the things that they did to get their money to live, whilst their rich official governments lived in luxury, in penthouses with swimming pools. I felt curtains draw on my world. I felt as if all the pages had been ripped out and I was reading from a new book now, one that I didn't rightly understand. And maybe sometimes when I saw that they were tricking me, I felt bad. I felt disgusted at what they could do as the old me came through, and I thought that I wouldn't give any more money, but I thought of their suffering, saw their smiles as they were a little bit happier, and carried on nevertheless. For I felt that even though they might be tricking me, my deed was still good, and out of that goodness at least some people would be true and would be rewarded, and those who lied or cheated to get from me as those who were truthful got, at least it meant that some were rightly rewarded. And anyway, in the eyes of those who are good and God himself, as he looks down and sees the intention of someone giving money, alms to other people, whether they lie or not, there's still reward for that intention. So I thought better to give the money, not to stop, just because of those people. Because then no one would be the winner, me or the truthful. Maybe I felt by doing this I could redeem myself, be absolved of the sin that I had created when I had walked into that box house and let that girl die when I could have saved her with the small amount of money that they had asked from me. And that short amount of time walking about those dusty streets that are imprinted on my mind, of seeing their suffering, I can still, as I close my eyes, see their faces, expressions of sorrow, of pain and suffering. As I flew back to London and saw the great landscapes of this world that I live in, saw the sun shining over this great city where there is abundant riches and happiness and wealth, and I wondered what it was all for. How that this place could coexist when the city existed. That I knew from my journalist days of old that there was enough food on the planet to feed countless more billions than there actually were here, and yet there were people who suffered, who died of starvation, whilst we ate too much and threw our food in the bins. When I had gone out there, educated by this world's ways, I saw them as the wretches. But when I came back, I saw who the true wretches were. Even though they spoke polite, even though they said the right things and looked nice and decent, and said words that would show caring like I had done back in my days, but they were empty vessels, filled with nothing but contempt. The wretches were us, the rich, the powerful, the ones who had an easy life, who sat by as poor people died of our indolence, not theirs. So as I was on that plane, I realized that God had given us, even if you don't believe in him, free will, and if you don't, then it's man's choice, and then it is what we make of it. That we had chosen this path that we were now going down. That we had divided the world up. Don't let it happen. And we would fight one another in trenches just to get little plots of land. That we would let people suffer with diseases, whilst in this country we'd have vats of inoculations. The TB that they died of in Angeles City, we were all inoculated from. We could just go to our local hospital if we caught it and we'd be saved. Whereas they would die or would have to do some unspeakable act to get some money so that they could live.